For the next hour, sit quietly and we will control all that you see and hear. You are about to participate in a great adventure. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner mind to...
Good afternoon, everybody. I know everybody's getting excited to watch Super Bowl 59, and we thought we would have some fun here today. We did this last year. It's the beginning of what we hope will become an annual tradition, and it's in the description of the show, but I just want to throw it out there for those of y'all who might be consuming this other ways. If you're not catching us on our YouTube channel, Braves Country Radio, you may be catching us on radio, as this is going out to several different stations nationally on Super Bowl Sunday, and it is also going to be consumed Spotify on Braves Country Radio and a couple other things that other ways that people will listen to this, but I believe we're also going to drop it on Facebook as well. But basically what this is called a Salute to Baseball, and it is going into Super Bowl 59. This started, I believe, 56 years ago by a man named Jonathan Schwartz, and he was in the radio business in New York for over 40 years. And essentially what he did every Super Bowl Sunday is he gave a show to the locals there in New York and would play. He was on a music station, so he would play music constantly. But in between the songs, he would talk about how much he loved the game, and he would also talk about what's about to happen this year, etc. Well, because of music rights and all that kind of stuff that stops us from doing that in today's media, we don't do the music like we do with everything else. What we're doing is we are going to give you a different look at the world of baseball each year. And one of the things that we're going to look at from year to year, last year, if you want to go back and listen to that, it was the history of the game. It was the history of radio of the game and how baseball radio really kind of shaped Major League Baseball. We had a lot of fun with that one. This year, with 59, we got something else planned for next year. That's why we didn't do it. You'll see what we do next year. But this year what we're doing is 59 reasons why baseball is the best. And we're doing that in honor of Super Bowl 59. Look, don't get me wrong, I love football. I will always love the game of football. But baseball, to me, is the greatest game that has ever been devised, and it's not particularly close. And we're going to go over why, and this is not to put down other sports, because I love the game of football. I grew up playing the game of football, baseball, and basketball. I loved playing basketball when I was a kid. But without tearing down the other sports, we're just going to tell you what makes baseball better than what other sports may be. And you may be a lifelong baseball fan, and this stuff will just kind of reinforce your beliefs. You may be a fan who's on the fence of which sport is the best. You may be brand new to baseball. And so we hope today to have you take a look at baseball through the lens of what we believe are 59 of the... Now, look, this is by no means the end list. I could have went on forever. What I did was I took about an hour to jot down 59 of the reasons, and I ended up getting through it within about 20, 30 minutes. So I'm sure I skipped over things, but these are the things that jumped out at me. I didn't look anything up. What I did was what came to my mind. So if you have reasons why you think baseball is the best, by all means, we want to hear them. I can't wait to go back and read the comments after this show drops. But we want your input as well. So if we leave something off, or you just disagree with the list, whatever, I want to know it, because to me what makes sports great is the people. Not just the people that play the game, but the people that follow the game, the people that love the game. So with that being said, no further ado, let's go ahead and get it. And we're going 59-1. But this isn't necessarily a ranking. This is what I thought of as the very best, and then I went all the way down to 59, so I'm reading it to you from bottom to top, though I made the list from top to bottom. So I would not say that this is an end-all, be-all list of how I would rank them. This is just what I believe, 59 things that jump out at me, and I hope you have some fun with it as well. All right. Let's go ahead and get into number 59. Well, we just played it to Take Me Out to the Ball Game. There is no song, there is nothing in sports that is more catchy and more beloved than Take Me Out to the Ball Game. And what I mean by that is you might have your alma mater song that you love if you graduated from college X, Y, or Z, but that song is going to mean nothing to a fan of a different school. You may be a Hail to the Redskins guy or gal, and you may love Washington Redskins football, but that won't mean anything to someone who is a fan of, we'll say, the Seattle Seahawks. Take Me Out to the Ball Game. The only song that I can think of that is more beloved in the United States than Take Me Out to the Ball Game is our national anthem. So you could make an argument that the Take Me Out to the Ball Game is our second anthem, because the sport is older than the song, obviously, but none of us were alive before it was cut. The song was actually cut. It was originally written late 1900s of the first decade. So what I should be saying, I believe it was 08 or 09. It was somewhere in that neighborhood. And it was eventually composed and put to music. The two gentlemen, one that sang wrote the song, and the other that put it to music, neither one of them had ever been to a Major League Baseball game at that time. Though they did all of this in New York City, the capital of baseball, where Major League Baseball really was given birth to and given such a... If it weren't for New York City baseball in the late 19th century to early 20th century, you would have never had the love affair that you do now with the sport, because it really took off from there. Now, they were playing it all over the country, but when it became a big thing, you're talking about radio coming in and popularizing it. Well, one of the things that really made it take off were the movies that were being released at the time. And of course, the talkies don't come out until later. So these are silent films. But you had things called Nickelodeons where they flashed pictures on the screen and they had music. And originally, when they released that song, Take Me Out to the Ball Game, it was kind of a dud. Like, people were like, it's okay. They didn't hate it. They didn't love it. But they didn't really associate with anything. When they started putting it in the movie theaters with the Nickelodeons shortly after, that's when it took off. And before you knew it, the teams were playing it in the stands, and the fans in the movie theaters, as well as the baseball games themselves, the fans started to sing along. So that's what really popularized the sport, and popularized that song, was the fans getting along with it and the fans really falling in love with the song. And because they fell in love with the song the way they did, they would sing along at the park. And eventually, as we all know now, you get up in the seventh inning, and that's typically what every stadium plays, is Take Me Out to the Ball Game. So that is number 59 on reason why baseball is the best game ever. Number 58, it is the pace of the game. Other sports, you talk about basketball, the speed of basketball, the speed of hockey. A fan watching it along with their friend really doesn't have the same pace that they do with baseball. Football is the only thing that comes a little close to it, but realize during the actual play itself, during the plays, what you get with football is there's an uproar. So there's not quite the conversation that you have when you're watching a baseball game with your friends, listening to it on radio, going to the game. The pace of the game lends to conversation and lends to that bonding. When you're talking about going to a football game, a basketball game, a hockey, you name it, the pace ends up being so fast, and climactic shots, climactic touchdowns, what have you, that conversations don't really unfold the way they do at a baseball game. You'll have the explosion of a home run, but it's not every single play, so it's more of you're consuming the game, enjoying the game, even if you're at home, and being able to talk about everything, not just the sport of baseball. You're having conversations with your family, your friends, about everything in between pitches, during the pitch, unless the ball gets ripped into the gap, and that's why the pace of the game, to me, is the best there is. Kind of went over it a second ago, but my number 57 reason is the movies. Meaning the actual movies. When you talk about the world of baseball, you're talking about one thing and one thing only when it comes to movies. Baseball has the best movies in all of sports. And it's not close. You can give a complete, lengthy list of great baseball movies, and I won't go through them all right now, but you know the usual suspects. Some of my favorite, and everybody differs with this because it's when you saw them, it's what it meant to you at the time, et cetera, et cetera. Field of Dreams, because I've talked about this before in length, but I wrote an article on Field of Dreams. I grew up on that movie. That was the first movie that really made me feel like I was starting to fall in love with the game. I was of that age where I was starting to veer away from football being my passion, and it was more baseball because I'm learning about the game. And we get it. The ghost baseball players. No way in hell that could ever happen. But the magical idea that it could made me fall in love with the game. And then you've got other movies like Bull Durham. I particularly love Fever Pitch. It's the story behind it. It's the fact this guy's such a psychotic baseball fan and what his future wife is going to have to deal with. But there are other offbeat movies you probably don't know that are based around baseball. Like there's a great one that I found a few years ago, Love and Baseball. That's a great movie. 8 Men Out. I know a lot of people grew up on The Sandlot. That was a little past my time. I was a little too old to watch that when I was a kid. But I can appreciate it. I've seen it a couple of times, and I can appreciate it. But the list goes on and on. For Love of the Game will always be one of my favorites. 61 is probably my favorite. If I really break it down to what is actually the best baseball movie, it's 61. But nonetheless, we love the game, and we love the movies. Number 56 reason, there's no halftime show. You don't have to sit through that crap. I don't know about y'all, but this year's halftime show, I have no interest in that, and it is going to last a while. I want to say they average around 40 minutes in the Super Bowl. Now, regular season, it's about 12 to 15 minutes, depending on whether it's college or pro. But when you get to the postseason, whether it's bowl games, whether it's playoff games in college, and they all get, especially the Super Bowl and the college football playoffs and the college bowl games, they have much longer half times, and you can have it. I don't have any interest in sitting through that. If I'm at the stadium, oh my God, it's the worst. Even if I'm at home, you can only go outside, hang out, drink you one, wait to come back. And I can remember, and I know it's going to happen again this year. I'm going to constantly go, it still haven't started the game back. So that's why, to me, not having a halftime show is the best thing ever. Number 55, the crowd. The crowd in baseball fans are greater than the football crowds, the basketball crowds, the hockey crowds, because they consume the game the way it should be consumed, which is more of a leisurely pace. Yes, don't get me wrong, you get in the World Series and you get an intense moment, you're going to have the place going bananas. But I'm talking about you go to a regular season baseball game, you're literally just going out there to hang out at the old ballpark, take in an evening of baseball. I don't know about y'all, but I've been to a lot of minor league baseball games over the years. I don't go for any other reason than to go hang out at the park. I've been to Major League Baseball games where I have the same mentality. I don't do anything but go hang out at the park. And that's what, and it's great if they win, but it's not, it's different when you go to a football game, right? Because you only got, 15, 16, now it's 17 games. So every one of them seems like life or death. When you're talking about going to an NBA game or an NHL game, They're much louder. They're usually cold. It's not the same. The crowd is the best at a baseball game. Number 54, it's still the best radio game. You turn on a radio and listen to a baseball broadcast. They're honestly, they're playing 3D chess while the rest of them are playing checkers. There's just much more to the game, and there's an art form of bringing you the game, and you can't say that as much about football. There are some great football broadcasters, don't get me wrong, but bringing you the game per radio, it's not even close. And when you talk about baseball compared to basketball or hockey radio, I mean, that's a blowout. Vegas wouldn't even set a line on that. The game's moving too fast. The person who is bringing you the game, because I've done those sports as well, you can't paint the picture fast enough because something else is happening. And the person who's listening to you, they're really just focusing on hearing, did someone just score? Did someone just score? Did someone shot on goal, et cetera, et cetera. So the radio game, it's still the only sport that is just as enjoyable to sit out on your porch and listen to the radio play. That's why we do it the way we do it on our YouTube channel. The Atlanta Braves Country Baseball broadcast. If you never pulled up a chair and listened to us, there's a reason why we do it the way we do it. But my point is, you can sit out on your porch, turn on the game, not have to see it. You can be doing 100 different things. You might just be drinking you a cold one, watching the traffic go by. You might be out in your garage working on something, but you can still keep up with the game. Football has a little bit of that, but you'd still much rather be watching it. Baseball is the only game that is still true to the ear. Number 53, the classic argument, and not just the argument, but the unfolding in the watching of plate discipline versus ambush is what I call it. Meaning you have a pitcher up there, and they're trying to figure out what the hitter is going to do, and you can't say that one's better than the other, though we all know that the truly great hitters usually are very particular on what pitch that they want, and they're guys like the Tony Gwynns and Wade Boggs, and list goes on and on as far as the Pete Roses, the guys who got on via the hit, Ty Cobbs. They knew what they were looking for, and they would fight through a count. But then you have the ambush hitter. Freddie Freeman is one of the most famous ambush hitters in all of baseball. And it's not like that guy's not going to the Hall of Fame. And to watch it unfold, because it's not just from the hitter's standpoint and the hitter's view and their strategy, you're also looking at it from the pitcher's. Because the pitcher's going up there and they say, okay, well, Freddie likes to ambush. I'm going to try to get him to chase something right off the plate. This guy likes to work the count, so I'm going to go after him a little more aggressively and get him behind. And that constant mind game is just one of the greatest things in all of sport. It might be the best as far as when you rank strategies in sports. That's the number one strategy. But I'm going to say that might be one of the greatest things in life. Watching those two people compete, and they each have a game plan, and we're going to see who gets the best of who along with their ability. Number 52, you have to let your opponent have their chance. Meaning, because of the strike zone, if it's called in earnest, you have to let the guy you're going up against get his 3 strikes. You can't just pitch. In other words, if you talk about all these other sports where clocks are involved in it, I'm going to use an example that dates way back before I was even realistically watching the game of basketball. But there was a time where they had the 4 corners offense in college basketball, meaning if you got up, we'll say 15, 10 points, whatever, with about 5-6 minutes left, they would just pass the ball around, eating the clock, because they didn't have to give you the ball back. Even now, once you get to a certain point in the game, you can start doing the math, whether it's basketball or football, and you can start doing the math of, well, if we just eat the clock and do this, this, and this, there's no physical way for them to come back. Number 51, there's nothing better than coming home. And that's the great thing about baseball. You go a long way just to get back to where you're at. But you go out there and you venture. You go to first and second and third. But it doesn't mean anything unless you can come all the way home. And you're greeted by your teammates and the fans are happy. There's something about that. It's all in that one spot. Whereas if you look at the other sports, the scoring lines are on two separate ends. But you know if you're sitting behind home plate, they got to come home to score. All the action is at home. Number 50, you can win or lose the game in the first or the ninth or anywhere in between. You go to catch particularly the one I think of the most is a basketball game, and you sit there and you tell me in a regular season game, man, are you watching the game? Man, call me when there's about 3-4 minutes left. Shoot me a text. I'll flip over there. Because with all the fouls, it's still going to be another half hour before the game's over. But the game never comes down to, man, I missed the first 5 minutes of the game. It's over now. You got plenty of time to come back. But you walk into a baseball stadium. This is why a lot of people have a problem with the way the Dodger fans are on home games. You walk into a baseball stadium into the second or third inning, you might have missed the game. Someone might have went out there and jumped out to a 5-6 run lead, and it becomes incredibly difficult to come back. I go back to the 2019 NLDS where the Braves were at home in a winner-take-all Game 5. Before we could get out of the first inning, we ended up giving up 10 runs, and that was it. At the same token, if you're sitting around in the ninth inning, you're down by 4 or 5 runs, much like when you talk about you have to put the ball over the plate for them to win the game. At the same token, in the ninth inning, you could be up 3 or 4 runs. The game is not over, and they can't run out the clock. So the fact that you could win or lose the game in any inning means you need to lock in and watch the whole thing. Because tuning in for the fourth quarter just doesn't work. Number 49, it's played in a park. There's something great about the fact that when you go to these ballparks, and they're all different all throughout the country, on every level, is that you're literally going to a park. The green grass. I know we've got a few of them out there that have artificial surfaces. Thankfully, AstroTurf is gone, but all in all, you're going to go watch it at a park. And there's something great about that. Number 48 on the list, your dad and your mom, their grandparents would still recognize this game. There have been some changes over the years, but not so where you would no longer recognize the sport. At the same token, you take someone from the early 1900s, late 1800s, and you show them a football game, my God, they would never recognize it. It's not even close to being the same sport. Same thing with basketball, but baseball has stood the test of time because it's simply the greatest game that's ever been devised. Number 47, the fans are more educated about their game, and that's just a fact. The fans of Major League Baseball, and college baseball for that matter, are going to be more educated not only about their teams, but about the game, about the rules, about their roster depth. You go to your average baseball fan, man, woman, child, who have been following the team for a while. I'm not talking about your brand new fans. Ones who've been following the team for a while. They can probably give you pretty in-depth reports about what's going on down on the farm. You're not getting that from 99% of fans don't know who the hell is on the practice squad of their favorite NFL team. The fans are just simply more educated across the board, and it really is a great thing. Number 46, stealing is legal and encouraged. You can steal a base, you can steal a run, and it is encouraged by the rules. And that's not nothing. There's something outlaw Old West about that I'll never not love about the game of baseball. And I'm glad. I hate that they had to go to such great lengths of shortening the base pass by enlarging the bases and doing a couple other things. But I'm glad that the stolen base is coming back in vogue, because one of my favorite teams to watch in the history of baseball were the St. Louis Cardinals of the 1980s, because they manufactured their runs. Number 45, there's only one opening day in sports, and I don't care what you tell me different. No other sport does opening day like Major League Baseball. Not the NFL, not the NBA, not the NHL, not college football. Because they all tend to kind of trickle in their opening weekends, and it doesn't have the same feel. But the difference between opening day in baseball and opening weekend, we'll just broaden into opening weekend in football, is that not everybody that tunes into their favorite team really feels like we got a chance this year. Opening day gives you that opportunity. Number 44, the smell of the glove. You get a brand new glove. I don't even have to tell you. It's already in your head. You get a brand new glove, whether it was a Wilson or Rawlings, Spalding, whatever you wore as a kid. And that smell, that fresh leather, even before you put the oil in and worked it out and wore down the glove itself, that is a smell that you will never forget. It's better than new car smell. It's so much better than new car smell. Because when you would lift that glove to your face as a kid, dreams were possible. And we all dreamt the dream. I don't know if there's a kid out there that did not fall asleep at least one night with the baseball glove, either under his head or hold on to it like a teddy bear. Number 43, you'll never see it all. Every time I do a game, there's something that I see that I think to myself, I've never seen that before. And I've been watching baseball for well over 40 years. And I know I'll never see it all. Because when I would hear Vin Scully at the end of his career say that he thought he had seen it all, but this, and this happened. And this guy would be in his late 70s, early 80s. I know I'll never see it all. I'll never consume as many games as he did fully, even if I started yesterday. Number 42, 2 hits can beat 9. You can have 9 hits sprayed across 9 innings, couple of walks, and maybe if scratched out a run, you might be shut out. But a bloop and a blast would beat you 2-1. That's the great thing about this game. There's so many different ways to beat you. At the same token, team can go out there and hit 5 solo shots and get beat 9-5. It's a great game. Number 41, A League of Their Own. It's not just the movie League of Their Own, which has inspired a lot of little girls to go on and play softball at a very high level. If you've not watched college softball in the past, we'll say decade, you're really missing a sport. And it's more and more, though it'll never be the same sport, and that's what makes it great as well. But it's more and more of an offensive game than it was. When I first started consuming it on television 25, 30 years ago, it was a really dull sport. Because 1, maybe 2 runs won the game. It was very pitching heavy, but the hitters have gotten better. But the League of Their Own that movie alone had little girls wanting to grow up to be a part of this great game. But then the other thing out of that is based on a true story. It's not a true story, but it is based on a true story. And the idea that these girls were playing all over the Midwest in a professional manner while the men were overseas fighting a war, that's Americana to me. Number 40, lifetime bans and steroid debates. You don't get that in other sports. You know why? Because you get slaps on the wrist when you cheat in other sports. In baseball, the integrity of the game is more important than anything else. So you're always going to have the debate, even if a guy gets in. And there are some guys in that we're pretty sure, Pudge Rodriguez, Mike Piazza. There are guys that we believe, hey, we think they cheated. But there wasn't enough evidence and guys voted them in. There are other people who say, I would never vote for them. I'm on that side. But because of the steroid and the the gambling bans on Shoeless Joe Jackson, on Pete Rose, you're always going to have the debate. Even if they finally put him in, there's going to be another side that's going to say that's ridiculous. People forget this. Paul Hornung was busted for gambling. A couple other football players have been busted for gambling over the years, and they've been allowed back in the league. Nicknames. Nicknames are the best in baseball. I mean, do we have to say anything other than the Babe? The Bambino? The Sultan of SWAT? One guy has like 10 of the greatest nicknames of all times. Baseball has the greatest nicknames, and I've always thought it was because with the game having that slowness to it in between pitches, it's slowed down, and there's room for chatter, there's room for conversation. There's also room for creativity, and the personalities come out in the game, and that's how you get your nicknames. You don't get that. Like Tom Brady's just, and the GOAT is not a nickname. That's a description of any player of any sport. But I thought it was funny shortly after he retired when Tom Brady tried to put the rights down on the term Tom Terrific, and instantly the patent board came back and said no, because there's only one Tom Terrific, and you ain't him, son. His name's Tom Seaver. Nicknames are the best in baseball. Speaking of nicknames, Babe Ruth, number 38. Babe Ruth, Jackie Robinson. These are names that will live on forever for different things. We all know what Jackie did for the color barrier. We all know what Babe Ruth did to essentially save baseball. But there are so many legends that are larger than life, and they actually become larger the further away we get from their career. The giants of this game are bigger than the giants of any other sport. You could make an argument for a player here and there in other sports, like a Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and a Jordan. But the list is incredibly small compared to just the absolute heroes, the Willie Mays, the Hank Aaron's of Major League Baseball. They are true heroes, true gods to those of us who love the game. Number 37, the sounds, sights, and smells. When you go to the ballpark, you hear the crack of the bat. You can see the green grass and blue sky. And you can smell the peanuts and popcorn. There's nothing better than that. Number 36, a no-hitter, a perfect game. You can have the worst team having their worst week, and one day they go out and throw a perfect game or a no-no. You feel like you won a championship if you're a fan of that team. You feel like you're on top of the world. They rush the mound. They don't do that if a guy goes out and scores 4 touchdowns. They don't do that if a guy goes out and scores 50 points. They don't do that for a hat trick. They threw the hats on the ice. It's pretty cool. But it's nothing like a no-hitter, and it's nothing like a perfect game because there's so few. Every team, number 35, every team wins a third. They lose a third. It's that middle third of the season that decides whether you are great or not. Even the best teams in baseball are going to lose about 50 games. Even the greatest ones that have ever played. They're going to lose 50 games. You're going to win 50 games. It's the middle 50, give or take. I know technically 62, but it's that middle part that decides. The best teams will win 50. The best teams will lose 50. The worst teams will win 50. It's what you do with the middle. Number 34, the ceremonial first pitch. There's nothing like it, is there? You know, that's why the Super Bowl had to create the national anthem type of experience, because they don't have that. You can't have the sitting president or a famous singer or actor go out and try to kick a field goal, shoot a free throw before a game. It's just there's nothing similar to it. The ceremonial first pitch, you are on the stage, and it's still I will still watch a ceremonial first pitch. I don't care who it is, because I want to know, can they hit the strike zone? That's it. That's all we want to know. Whether you like or hate the person, that's all you would want to know. And whether you are a Democrat or Republican, an independent, a libertarian, part of the Green Party, whatever. I think we all who lived at that time period and lived through the horrific 9/11, I think we all remember where we were when George W. went out there and threw that perfect strike right down the middle Yankee Stadium. I still get goosebumps thinking about it. And you can tear apart anything you want or the entire presidency of the man, but that dude hit a strike right down the middle. And that's not nothing. Number 33, the young and the old. This game brings the young and the old together. The young believe that they can do it. The old believe they could still probably do it. It's the one game that's so relatable that it doesn't matter where you are in life. You still could envision yourself doing some of the things you see on a baseball field. Though we all know if you really ask yourself in the mirror and we're honest, no, you can't do it. But there's something that lends you to believe that you could. But you hit a certain age and you know you couldn't hit a layup or to dunk a basketball. You hit a certain age and you know there's no way in hell you could break that tackle. But I could probably still get a base hit. That's what we all say to ourselves. I could strike that guy out. Number 32, the food and the drink. A cold beer and a hot dog on a summer day at the old ballpark. That's all I need to say on that one. Number 31, the deception of a pitch and its movement. It's still one of the great things. It's why the game, when it was first devised, it evolved. They didn't even envision that being a thing. When you first had baseball being played competitively, it was looked upon as ungentlemanly-like to deceive your opponent. So you did not throw curveballs. You would have never dreamt about throwing a splitter, a cutter, a fadeaway, a screwball, any of those, a slider, any of those pitches. It was straight fastballs. And when Candy Cummings, in the middle of the 19th century, was the first to famously realize when he was throwing seashells, across the pond back home, if he could just make a baseball curve that way, he'd really be onto something. And he figured it out. The rest is history. Number 30, it teaches us that failure is a part of life. Someone misses a layup, they miss a dunk, they drop an open pass in the end zone. People don't relate to that. They say, my God, what is your problem? Catch that ball. Hit that shot. Do the easy things. Right? We've all done it. We all sit there and go, it's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. So unathletic. Meanwhile, it's taken us 2 or 3 times to get up off the couch. The point being, with baseball, what is different about the sport is that when you see a guy strike out and you see a guy hit into a double play, you don't have that same thought. The first thought is, damn, that game's hard. The quotes of Major League Baseball, there are none better. Major League Baseball quotes, to me, are some of the greatest quotes in the history of America. Baseball quotes rival those of the great Mark Twain. We all know Yogi Berra's types of ones, like baseball's 90% mental, the rest is half physical. I'll tell you a funny one that I came across when I was doing this. Hank Aaron famously once said, it took me 17 years to get 3,000 hits in baseball. I did it one afternoon on the golf course. My favorite one, and I quote it all the time, it's my profile picture during the off season. People ask me, what do I do in winter when there's no baseball at all? I'll tell you what I do. I stare out the window and wait for spring. That was Roger Hornsby in the 1920s. But I won't go through all of them. We'll probably do a thing of baseball quotes one day here on the Once Upon a Pastime series, but the quotes are the best. Number 28, when a record is threatened, we all lock in. When Drew Brees was coming up to break the all-time touchdown pass record, no one really cared. When he broke it, I believe it was on a Monday Night Football. He broke something on a Monday Night Football. This is how much it doesn't matter to us. And we would sit back and we'd say, yeah, it's pretty cool, man. And then you go, well, but you can't compare the two and blah, blah, blah. But baseball, when they're chasing a home run record, when they're chasing 3,000 hits, so many of those, I know where I was when I saw them. I'll never forget where I was when Pete Rose beat Ty Cobb's record. I was in the back room on my grandparents' porch watching that game in a little 13-inch. I don't believe it was black and white. I think that one actually had color television, but it was rabbit ears, and the whole nation was watching. We all watched, even though later on we realized, but at the time we just didn't want to think about it, that it was steroid-induced. We all watched Roger Maris's home run record get beat by Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, a few years later, Barry Bonds. And just a few years ago, no matter what anybody says, the legitimate modern record is Aaron Judge. And they broke into college football games and showed you the home run chase. Number 27, the evolution of the game keeps a lot of records safe. There are a lot of records that we're going to see broken as time goes on. But there's certain ones, because of the evolution of the game, you will never see it broken. And so it lends to that conversation, that argument. And there's many I could choose from, but one of the more infamous ones is Cy Young's win record. Cy Young's loss record, you're never going to see it. Because you're not going to even sniff 400, much less 500 wins in Major League Baseball, because you simply don't have the opportunity to play in that many games. They're not going to put you in there every other day like they used to. Number 26, managers dressing like players. Other than Connie Mack, they all wear baseball uniforms. Can you imagine a football coach standing there with the jersey and pads on? It'd be kind of weird. Basketball coach with Jim Schwartz. It'd be a little weird. Baseball, it fits because at one point players were managers and vice versa. Number 25, I just love the stirrups and the socks when they pull the pants high in baseball. To me, there's nothing better. There's no better look in sports than being able to see the socks and the stirrups on a baseball uniform. There's something cool about it. It's kind of old school. It's kind of throwback. Not enough of them do it. Chipper Jones would, in his entire career, going up and down. Sometimes he'd do it, sometimes he wouldn't. I always loved when I saw him come out with those pulled up towards his knees. You know, the big old thing of gum hanging out of his mouth. That open stance from the left side. That was a baseball player. Dugouts are greater than sidelines. That's number 24. The dugout is better than the sideline. There's more camaraderie. There's more joking. You got guys stick a bubble gum on the top of a guy's ball cap in the middle of a game. You have the big fake out when a guy has a big hit because he's a rookie or whatnot, and he comes into the dugout after his first home run, and they all ignore him. There's humor in that. It's funny. There's personality to the game. You don't get that on a football sideline, on a basketball sideline. And you're going to see them locked in on the sidelines in a hockey game. There's something that those dugouts lead to. And when I say dugouts, I'll go ahead and include the guys hanging out in the bullpen. They get to know each other over a 162-game season. Number 23, as a fan, the attire, the caps, the baseball caps. And I know you can buy a baseball cap for the National Football League, college football, and I get that, and we all wear them. They look better as a baseball cap because it's what they actually wear on the field. And you can go walking around. I mean, I guess you could, but you can't go walking around with the damn football helmet on. Someone will think you're a mental patient. Number 22, the weird in baseball makes it good. There's a lot of weird things that happen in baseball. Not just the personalities like the Bird that played for the Tigers in the 70s, but the weird things that will happen in a baseball game that you won't see in any other type of sport. The bending of the rules. What about the cork bat? That's weird. What about Albert Bell climbing through the rafters, climbing through the ceiling to steal back the cork bat, or the cork bat of Albert Bell? I guess it wasn't Albert Bell, it was his teammate. I forget the guy's name, but went in there to steal it back because he knew where the bat was, and he got it out of there. They knew he did it, but they couldn't prove it. The weird stuff that happens in baseball, it's just the best. The nail files falling out, them getting busted with gunk on their hands. The weird is good. Number 21, we're always chasing ghosts in this game. Doesn't matter who you are, who you play for. As great as Shohei Ohtani may be, they're always going to compare him to Babe Ruth until he surpasses him. Aaron Judge is always going to be chasing the ghost of Babe Ruth. If you're a pitcher for the Dodgers coming up, they say, man, this guy could be the next Sandy Koufax. This new Atlanta Brave guy, he could be the next Greg Maddux. You're always chasing ghosts. And that's what makes it great, because the older generation can say, look, I'm telling you, kid, he's not, he never will be. No matter what you think, he can't hold a candle to Pete Rose. He can't hold a candle to such and such. And then the kid goes, are you nuts? This guy's so much faster and so much stronger. And that's the great debate. Number 20. Remember we talked about how there is no halftime? Well, we've got a 7th inning stretch, and that's pretty damn cool. And with that being said, the 7th inning stretch with the Take Me Out to the Ball Game, we're going to play that real quick and then get right back to it. All right, had to give me a drink of water and stretch the legs, and we're back at it. The 7th inning stretch. First of all, you're involved in it. You're getting up and singing and standing, and it lasts, what, a couple of minutes? It's nothing like having to wait for halftime to end. Number 19, the history of the game. America is baseball. You could mark the time of this great nation by this great sport. Before Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks made their stands and made their name, Jackie Robinson was breaking the color barrier. And it's not just that, but those are the types of things that mark the time of the game. You go back and you look through the history books and go, man, what the hell was going on here? Why did Ted Williams quit playing for this year and that year? Because he was in the World War II. He was in the Korean War. It marks the time. There's even there's great stories that come out of the Civil War where famously troops would stop battling to go play baseball. Usually amongst themselves, but there were some accounts of the North and the South playing baseball games against each other. This game has marked the time of, and it goes back so far. You might think, well, it doesn't go. No, it goes back so far. There are actual accounts of baseball, not Major League Baseball, obviously, but baseball being played as early as 30 to 35 years before we declared our independence from Great Britain. The game marks the time. Number 18, the best characters are in this game. No one will ever beat Yogi Berra, but there's some great ones. And all of them are much more dynamic and well known for their personality than anybody in football. And it really just comes down to, now some of that could change over the years with podcasts and whatnot, but I'm talking about stuff that took place during the games. Interviews after the games. These guys became well known, and you felt like you knew who they were as they were coming into your living room. And they just tend to have, I've always said the reason why baseball has better characters, personalities than other sports is because of that downtime and in between pitches. And when you're sitting on the bench, you know you're not going to be, when a coach puts you in a football game, you know you could come back out at any minute and vice versa. When you go to a baseball game, You're there for the rest of the game until he pulls you out. And once he pulls you out, you're not coming back in. So the guys that get pulled out that are not coming back in, or guys that knows they're not going to be used that day, it really opens up their conversation and the jokes that they'll pull on each other in the dugout. Number 17, as we speed this up to get you out of here, it is the ultimate team game. I know everyone's going to say football is, but baseball is the ultimate team game. First of all, you need team unity to pull a 6-4-3 inning-ending double play. You need a team game to go out there and win a World Series, because it's not just the quarterback. You're going to need a starting rotation. You're going to need some hitting. You're going to need a hell of a bullpen, my man. It's the ultimate team game. Number 16, there is no clock. I know there's a pitch clock now, but there is no clock. You can't run. As Earl Weaver famously said, baseball is the greatest game ever because you can't run the ball into the line and run out the clock. You got to give the man his chance and throw the ball over the damn plate, and that will always be the case. Number 15, the Major League Baseball. The Baseball Writers Association, though it has its flaws, it is still the best Hall of Fame, and it's not even close. If you're in the Baseball Hall of Fame, all the Hall of Famers, hockey, basketball, football, they all get bad respect. I'm not going to argue that. But when someone says that they just made the Major League Baseball, or I guess it's the National Baseball Hall of Fame, that is saying a mouthful. And the respect that comes with that, whether people talk about it or not, there's a little more reverence to a guy that made the Hall of Fame in baseball than in other sports. I know there's a Harold Baines in every single Hall of Fame. I get it. One where you're like, what the hell is he doing there? But you never get a player added to the Hall of Fame. You look at their numbers and go, who the hell is this? What did he do? You get that all the time in the other sports. Hell, if you have a heartbeat, you usually get put into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Number 14, held accountable, the good and the bad. The game holds you accountable. So when you're a hero and you have the walk-off, everyone slaps you on the back. But if you give up the home run, like Mitch Williams did in the 93 World Series to end it all, it wrecks guys. Donnie Moore, the infamous home run he gave up to Henderson in the 86 ALCS, he never got over that. I don't care what Mitch Williams says in a couple of documentaries, he's never gotten over that. Because every time you see him, he's spiraling out of control. So we take the good with the bad, but you're held accountable in the game. Bill Buckner, enough said. Number 13, the prolonged drama. It's 3-1 in the bottom of the eighth. And your team gets a leadoff triple, trailing by 2. It's not instant gratification always. It's not a touchdown. Or a guy didn't just get a long catch all the way down to the 3 and you know they're about to score. You know there's a lot more work to be done because not only do you have to try to find a way to get him in, but you want to keep the rally going. It's just a different thing. With football, you're literally just looking at the fact, all right, we're down here to the 2-yard line. It's 1st and goal. We're going to get it in. Then what happens after that? And then you're kind of going. With baseball, you're like, man, we got to get that guy in. We got to get the guy at the plate in. And somehow we got to take the lead. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, if we do take the lead, what do we do with our bullpen? And we're in the middle of June. Are we sticking with the plan of letting so-and-so pitch? Or are we going to empty out the bullpen because we have a chance to win this game? Number 12, speed versus power. You'll throw finesse in there as well. There's more than one way to skin a cat in this game. Guys have been in the Hall of Fame of all shapes and sizes, and that will continue. Jose Altuve will always be just as much of a hero to Houston fans as Aaron Judge will be to Yankee fans. Number 11, failing 7 out of 10 makes you a legend. If you fail 6 out of 10 times, you're immortal. We haven't had someone hit 400 in, what is it going on, 60 plus years, 60, almost 65 years. No one's ever finished their career over 400, and I don't expect that to ever happen unless the game drastically changes. But the idea of knowing that you being successful just 30% of the time, you're going to be a legend. That's a lot to wrap your head around, but 30% of the time you do your job correctly, you're going to get a bust in Canton, in Cooperstown. Usually, there's very few guys that have hit 300, usually because they didn't have a long career. But if you hit 300 or better, you're heading to the Hall of Fame. That sounds great, but it's just 30%. Number 10, each stadium is unique. Wrigley Field, Truist Park, Fenway Park, Yankee Stadium, Coors Field. They all have different... It's not just the different shapes and the different dimensions, but you have the altitude of Coors compared to the mugginess on an August night in Atlanta. Number 9, anybody can play this game. They can't all play it well, but anybody can play this game. You can play it down at your park, local park. If you can get some kids together, play some softball, play some baseball, do it today. But you can also play at any height, weight, any race. You want to see diversity on a field in modern day society, go to a baseball game and go hang out in the stands. The Latin players, the Latin fans, the Americans of all races, creeds, and sexes. Number 8, the season goes from early spring, the promise of an early spring, to the cold, hard facts of winter. We begin this in spring training in late February, but realistically March, and we end it in the end of October, sometimes into early November. And it's just like a true calendar, we hibernate for the winter. Number 7, it is the hardest sport to master. Hitting a round object with a round object, and you do not know the speed or the shape that ball is going to take as it is delivered in your direction, is the most difficult thing to do in sports. Ask any scientist, physicist, they all say baseball is it is the most taxing, most demanding sport. And that's why if you're successful 30% of the time, you go to the Hall of Fame. The explosion of the home run. You can be watching a game. It's nip and tuck. It's 2-2 in the 6th inning. And you get a couple of guys, get a bleeder through the middle. The next guy walks or hit by a pitch. And you're not even expecting it. Out of nowhere, someone belts one over the right field wall. And all of a sudden, bam! You're up by 3. The explosion of the home run, it's still the most anticipated score in all of sports. Number 5, the game in the game. Meaning what pitch on the pre-pitch. What pitch is the pitcher going to throw here? How is the defense aligned? Why is the defense line aligned like that? Is it because of the speed on the base paths? Is it because of the hitting tendencies of the guy at the plate? Is it because who's standing on deck? The game within the game has more moving parts that you can see in your mind's eye better than you can in any other sport. If you're watching a hockey game on TV, you can't see the rest of the ice. So you're really just focused on the action following the puck. Same thing in a basketball game. You can see most of it, but really you're focused on where the ball is. Football, the ball is launched for a deep pass. You can't see it. So you can't, in the pre-snap, you don't know where the safeties are set up. But in baseball, your mind's eye can create all kind of scenarios that you're arguing along with as the game goes on. They got to do this, they got to do that. Get this guy warm. Number 4, the grind of a 162. There are people who will try to tell you that a 162-game season is terrible. I would say you're insane. I like the fact that it's Air Force every day. You don't have to watch it. You don't have to listen. But it's there. And unless there's a rain out, you're going to know that tonight's game is starting at 7:15. And you know what? If it does rain, they'll make it up to you. Baseball's fair in that way. Number 3, the statistics. Someone asked me recently, and I'll never forget this because it just dumbfounded me. She was trying to make the argument. It wasn't someone I was close to. It was just I want to say it was a customer that came in. But anyways, they made the comment that they don't know if they could ever like baseball because she wasn't aware if we kept up with stats. I said, hell, that's all we do. That's all we've ever done. Baseball is statistics. We don't want to just care about what your batting average is and how many home runs and RBIs. We want to know what your OPS is, what your OPS plus, what your WAR is, what your F4 is, what your batting average with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. It goes on and on and on. So if you like numbers and you like statistics and you like pitting them against each other, we've got a sport for you, my friends. Number 2, I don't think a lot of people think about this, but I do. We have foul territory, and the ball's live. You can be out even if you hit the ball out of bounds. You throw a pass into the seats of the Super Bowl tonight, well, that's an incomplete pass. It's probably going to be caught by a fan, or actually, let's be honest, the fan's probably going to drop it. But they're the only ones who are going to be able to touch it, and we know that it's going to be an incomplete pass. A guy hurls a pass or a shot over the backboard. No harm, no foul. You'll just get back on defense and do better. Same thing with hockey. You shoot one out of the rink into the crowd. Well, stoppage of play, stoppage of play, stoppage of play. That's what they all have in common. The ball goes out of bounds into foul territory in a baseball game. As long as you don't run out of room, it can be caught over there. And if it's caught over there, it's an out. If it's not caught, that could be trouble. If you drop the ball, you might have just given the guy at the plate another swing that could turn into that home run we've talked about. And the number one reason why baseball is the greatest sport, and this will always be one of the best arguments, it is the only major sport where the defense always has the ball. Think about that. In all your other sports, the offense has the ball, and the defense's job is to keep you from doing something. In baseball, the defense has the ball, but they have to give you an opportunity to do something with it. And their job is to stop you from doing it. Whether it's catching the ball, preventing you from getting on safely, or striking you out. But it's the only sport where the defense has the ball. I hope y'all enjoyed this. I know I did. I'll see you next Super Bowl with the salute to baseball. This one was 59 reasons why baseball is the best. Enjoy your Super Bowl. Don't hate on the Super Bowl. You go to a Super Bowl party. Don't tell people how you don't like the Super Bowl. Enjoy it. It's an American tradition. Just like opening day and pitchers and catchers report this week. Y'all have a great one. Cannot wait to see y'all this 2025 season.